So I was hanging out with my brother the other day, and we were just bullshitting, talking about just politics and just overall how the United States military operates overseas. And then, we got to thinking. I thought this was an interesting idea, given how popular war video games are these days, war simulators and everything like that. What was, through all the military excursions that we've had, what's the KD for the United States military? So I went ahead and did a little bit of research, and I only looked at, United States conflicts that only, or for the most part, the United States was involved in. And I'm not including things like drone strikes and stuff like that just because it's cheating when it comes to the numbers, and I don't want to condone it. Now overall, with the wars in the Middle East for the past 10 years in Afghanistan and Iraq, we've lost a combined in Iraq we lost about 4,488 we've had that many casualties thus far. And we've also had 2,229 casualties in Afghanistan. This is basically mixed in with the combined 108,000 insurgents that we have killed. It's not including civilians, of course, because we've killed far higher than that. But overall, when it comes to the actual enemy that we targeted, 108,000 to around 7,000 people is no small stick to shake. I don't know what expression to use. In the Gulf War, we lost about 294 soldiers to the 35,000 Iraqi soldiers. Now that was more of a jointed effort, but it was definitely very much spearheaded by the United States military, and we did lead the charge on well over 90% of the military escapades that happened during that entire fucking conquest. During the Vietnam War, we had about 58,209 soldiers killed. That's also including missing persons. And that's to the 1 million Viet Cong that we had killed, the 1,100 Chinese that we had killed, and the 16 Soviet Union soldiers that we had killed. Again, we lost a lot of soldiers in that war. By far the worst war when it came to any, aside from World War II, obviously, when it came to just any war that we managed. But we still killed well over 1 million people, just soldiers overall. Now, in the Korean War, the war not too long before the Vietnam War, 54,246 soldiers were killed to 350,000 North Korean soldiers, 400,000 Chinese soldiers, and I think it was 282 Soviet soldiers. The Soviet Union liked to get involved, but not too heavily, right? I mean, that's pretty much how they operated during the 20th century. We're just going to skip over the Great Wars, and for the Spanish-American War, you had 2,446 U.S. deaths to 67,560 Spanish deaths. That is including their navy. The Mexican War, which was not too long before that, that eventually culminated in the Gadsden Purchase and everything that we now know as the southwestern part of our country. 13,283 U.S. deaths to 16,000 Mexican deaths. Now, we're just going to skip over the most troubling one here for a second. We're just going to go over the War of 1812 and the American Revolution. For the War of 1812, there was 2,260 U.S. deaths to 4,921 British deaths. So we were very efficient, especially given that we had a bullshit, navy and everything like that. When you go back to the American Revolution, now again, we wouldn't have won without the French, so we have to be kind of clear on that. But we lost 25,000 soldiers to their 24,000 British soldiers, and then the numbers showed 7,554 German mercenaries that the British had hired to fight us also died. I didn't get any French numbers because we're not focusing on them, for one, and also, we fought the majority of the war, so the majority of the men that died were soldiers from the United States anyway. Obviously, but you can see the British handled us pretty well in that war. Now, here's the most troubling one. It's called the Indians' War. It was a war that lasted between 1794, and the end date's kind of disputed because it's not really like a war. It was more like a series of military and social excursions against various native tribes throughout the country. So, like this includes like the Trail of Tears and obviously forcing like the Navajo and the Apache onto reservations and like forcing them to farm and things like that. And there's a lot of death involved with those kind of conversions. But over the course of the 100 years or so to 130 years, again, disputed end date, but it's around 100 years, and those are the numbers I went with. 1794 to the late 19th century, we lost 1,000 U.S. soldiers to the... It's 10 million. It's 10 million Native Americans that were killed. Some numbers suggest numbers as high as 100 million, but I was a little weary going toward that high of a number just because it was only one report that I had read, and the U.S. government states that it's around 1 to 4 million, which is so much better. But generally speaking, those reports from the U.S. government are disputed by many scholars and historians, and the average falls around 8 to 11 million that were killed. Now, that is worse than the genocide that's committed against the Jews. The Jews had 6 million that were killed in the concentration camps over the course of those 10 years. Granted, the Nazis killed them faster, but really we're looking at cold hard numbers here as to the amount of people were killed, not how efficiently it was done. The fact that the United States government is focusing on bullshit reporting to try and make that number seem lower, and even the fact that they can't even get it under 1 million for their own estimate is just a testament to the fact that we do not acknowledge how brutal a society we have been for the past 150 to 200 years. Especially toward minorities, and especially toward fucking natives. The Trail of Tears alone is just abhorrent and disgusting, and we put the president who spearheaded that on the fucking $20 bill. And we idolize him as the person who kept us out of debt for one entire fucking year. Ultimately, it's just kind of ironic that the United States, a country that is so foolhardy in its endeavor to promote peace and just unity and just this togetherness with the American dream throughout the world, has committed some atrocities in its past with the Indians' War, obviously slavery, stupid things like prohibition. I mean, the fact that we still have just a total problem with giving specifically black males or Latino males a harsher sentence for the same crime and same amount of evidence compared to a white male or a white female. Even today, it's just dumb. It's dumb that we don't acknowledge this, and the sooner we acknowledge it, the faster we can come to a solution on fixing it. When I went ahead and crunched the numbers, not including World War I's and II, there was 163,455 U.S. soldier deaths to, and this is going with the 11 million estimate, 12,014,433 enemy deaths. That's staggering. That's a huge margin. Basically, it puts us at, what did I put it at? Plus 11,850,978. Now, I can tell you right now, if you were playing a multiplayer match and you ended the match at that level, I mean, you'd feel sorry for the other team, would you not? The biggest blemish here that really skews the numbers is our 1,000 to 11 million ratio during the Indian Wars. And ultimately, I really think just overall, when you look at how our numbers, just crunching the numbers on how we dictate our military, down from spending to the amount of casualties to wounded, which the wounded numbers are much higher than the numbers I'm giving you here. We have spent 90% of the lifetime of us being a society engaged in some sort of military conflict. 90%. That's an A. So if you want to dictate if we are a military-like society, I could say you can make a very strong argument that we are. We're very efficient in war. We can lose a lot of soldiers, but we don't rely on just throwing bodies at you to win a war like a lot of older societies did in the past, like the Mongols, for example. What we do is we're very good at fighting people, and we're very good at engaging in battle. Our military tactics are very much top of the notch. We have more money than anyone to spend on making those tactics and our weaponry better, and we're very good at not losing wars. I mean, we've only really lost a couple of wars really badly in our, as a nation. I mean, the Vietnam War is a great example of that. But here's the thing, we consider Vietnam a loss, but if you look at the numbers, I mean, we won in terms of just cold hard numbers on who got the most kills. The same thing goes for the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Where we do lose is that the enemy is willing to fight longer than we are, because it's their home, and because we're not there for any real discernible reason. I mean, with Vietnam, we got involved because our allies, the French, couldn't hold on to their colony, and then they eventually started going toward, communistic USSR and the People's Republic of China friendly ties. We didn't like that, so we tried to kind of put a stamp on it and put in our own nation, so to speak. It's kind of the same thing that happened in Iran when we staged a coup, because the Iranian president that was democratically elected at the time wasn't someone that was very friendly with American policies and with just how we wanted them to act. They wanted to be a more independent nation. And of course, what's going on in Iraq and Afghanistan right now is, I mean, we engaged in a war that was completely unnecessary, and we destabilized an entire region, and now that region is going through more fighting now that we're leaving because we fucked some things up. And, you know, obviously the area wasn't great to begin with, but the point really is that we had no business being there. Even so, though, you know, you can consider those two wars a loss, but, I mean, look at the numbers. I mean, we lost a lot of soldiers, but they lost more. So ultimately, what's the point? What's the point of bringing all this up? What's the point of going over all these numbers with you? We're obviously a military-like society. We really like war. We care about war deeply. It's a part of our honor code. I mean, when someone joins the military, it's considered very honorable, just in general. I mean, it's considered something that's to be respected. It's not something that's to be derided or... and that's the thing, too. We don't have compulsory military service in this country. We have a draft, but it's only for men, and it's only in times of war when the president deems fit. We're a society that prides itself on how violent we are. I mean, think about it like this. Look at just how, like, movies are rated, or video games are rated. If you show a dick, especially a heterosexual male with an erect penis, and they show vaginal intercourse, for example, or anal sex, then you immediately have an NC-17 rated movie. Doesn't matter if there's no cuss words, no violence, no death, no nothing. However, to the same point, you can have a movie like Rambo, the fucking remake of, or the reboot of Rambo, where he's like literally stabbing people in the eyes and breaking their necks and shit. And you see blood all the time, but that's considered okay. I mean, take that same movie, put it in France, and it's an entirely reverse situation. I mean, they do not condone violence, and as a result, they grade violent movies and video games much harsher, and they're much more compelled to have video games like putting green blood and stuff like that instead of real blood, because that way it makes the enemies seem less human. Because violence is not okay. Over here, violence is okay. I mean, it's why we have capital punishment, it's why we have stand your ground laws, it's why we have a .86 guns to persons ratio, which is the highest in the world. We're a society that prides itself in violence. I mean, think about it. Aside from the Constitution, what as a country are we proud of? World War II. When we came into a war and completely just shifted the tides over into the Allies' favor and defeated the Axis powers. If you break down those numbers, during World War II, 8 million Axis soldiers were killed. This is to 16 million Allied soldiers killed. Now, we only lost about 500,000 soldiers. And I shouldn't say only, because it's a fucking crazy high number. But here's the thing. 16 to 8. That is a huge margin. And the Axis were winning until we came into the war. And who knows what would have happened if Nazi Germany and the Empire of Japan, you know, had attained a level of power to where they could fight us off. Who knows what would have happened if we would have waited? You know, and that is a very strong argument to make, because the 20th century is just buried by war and military conflict. Totally just has a distasteful, it leaves a distasteful, just a nasty aftertaste in my mouth when it comes to just analyzing the 20th century, because we had so many things that were good, like the internet, going to the moon. Obviously, you know, we like to refer to the great empowerment of women and of minorities that happened during the 20th century, especially in the Western world, which is very, very important, because, you know, we're a representative democracy. If we don't have everyone here being able to represent themselves, and we're not a fucking truly representative democracy. However, at the same time, we had all of these military conflicts. The only military conflict that wasn't in the 20th century that I mentioned here were the Spanish-American War prior and the Iraq War. All of the other things with the hugely, staggeringly high numbers, that's all 20th century. You know, and what we need to do as a society is we need to truly analyze, okay, is war good? What have we benefited from war? All we've done is lost soldiers who have devastated families. We've destroyed entire families of innocent civilians overseas. And for what? I mean, World War I was supposed to be the war to end all wars. World War II happened fucking what, 10 years, 15 years later? I mean, really, it doesn't seem like it's working. I mean, even in Dwight D. Eisenhower fucking in his inaugural address, his State of the Union address, warned against the military-industrial complex and how a powerful force it has on policy. We spend more money than any other nation on the planet combined on military spending, and we go nowhere with it. So really, I just want you to ask yourself, is it okay to constantly lead people astray and to their deaths for the benefit of a few who make money off of it? I mean, these wars obviously don't work, so we need to actually have a situation to where war is not an option. Thank you for watching up until this point in the video. I really do appreciate that. If you have something to say it in the comments section. If you like it, like it. If you dislike, don't. And if, of course, as always, you have yourself a great rest of your day. Peace.